I'm live. Hey, if anyone's out there, knock, knock, knock. So it's Monday night, and I thought I'd do my Monday night live. And I thought that I would I was sewing a shacket, I guess, a shirt jacket for my husband. It was the Merchant Mills Arbor shirt and jacket. And I realized that I'm using a lot of these tools that I have, and I was, as I was sewing it, I thought, you know what? I wonder if anyone else uses these because they're kind of different. And I'll show you what I have. So one of the things I use all the time is this little thing, and it actually came with my um, sewing machine, my Bernina. And I don't know if you have something like this or not, but I had first seen this on, and I can't remember the YouTube channel. It was Atelier something. I'll try and find it and eventually maybe put it in the comments or something. And that's a channel where they do a lot of industrial sewing, and it's an international channel. And so they, um, there's no really talking on it. But what this is and what this does is it helps when your sewing machine needs to go over a bump. Now, I don't know if you've ever had come to a place where maybe there's a shoulder seam or there's something, and the sewing machine needle, like here's your material, and and it's coming over, and then it's a bump, and your needle's going up, and the presser foot just can't get over it. So what happens is it gets really short, or sometimes it gets stuck, and you sort of have to push the fabric through. And when I force it or when I push the fabric through, sometimes what happens is my seam goes a little off to the side. And little did I know that by using this little thing, you just lift up the presser foot, and to the side of it, you lower the presser foot down so that the two levels that you're sewing, the one that's behind you and the one that's a little bit higher, is now level. And you just sew on through and no problem. And so I actually use this quite a bit. And this is made out of plastic. And you guys probably can't see, but here it's a little jaggedy because a couple of times my nails or my needle has um, missed it and gone through it. So I don't know. Have any of you guys ever used anything like that, or have you found it useful? Because I actually use this almost every time I sew. So I thought it was an uncommon sewing notion that I use. Now, the next thing I use all the time, believe it or not, is my awl. And this I use all the time. I don't know, do any of you guys use this? And what I use this for mostly is sometimes, when you have fabric, you have like let's say you have one layer that has interfacing on it. So there's no give on it. It's pretty stiff, but the other one has a little bit of give. And what happens is you're sewing, and even if you adjust the presser foot and the tension, sometimes you get a little bit where the top fabric is beginning to grow a little bit longer, or you have sort of excess, so that when you finish, you would actually have just a little bit excess. I find using my awl helps level that out. And what I do is I just, put it like my presser foot's right here. I just sort of slowly, um, I guess, roll the fabric so that what's ever getting in front, I just sort of roll it and it evens out. And as I said, I use this all the time. That's one of the ways I use my awl. And here's the thing, both of these, what I find funny or unusual, if I would have found these in like at Joann's or in a sewing shop, first of all, I wouldn't have known what they were. And second of all, I never would have bought them. So I think these are great little stocking stuffers or gifts for sewists, because most sewists, I don't know, maybe you guys already have them, but I don't. But and I'm glad that I actually have them. Now, another use that I use the awl for is sometimes, when you're sewing and let's say you have a seam or something, and how can I phrase it? So your material's going through, and then there's a seam or something that's going to cause the presser foot to turn it over or something. You can just go ahead and use this to push it through. I don't know. I use this all the time. I find it really, really helpful. So again, this is called an awl, AWL. I bought it originally to use for pattern making, to mark darts for my pattern making, but I actually find I use it a lot with my sewing machine. I'm sure you guys probably have something like it. So Two things I use all the time that I never would have thought to buy or that I would thought would have needed. Now, the next thing I have to say is something that I absolutely love, and this is basting thread. Now, I don't know if you've ever heard of basting thread. I learned about this from Claire Schaefer, watching some of her videos, and this is what I use to baste. And what it is it's a cotton thread. It's very thick, but it's also really easy. Like you can break it so easily. And what that is that you can go ahead and baste something together. And then when it's time to remove it, you don't have to get your seam ripper and be real careful about unpicking it. You can basically just unpick one and then pull it and it comes out. I mean, this is like really soft. And I have to say, this is something else that I use almost every time I sew. In fact, I use it so often that in my pincushion, there's usually a needle which has some left over. So I can just pick it up. And when I come across something that I'm sewing that I know is going to be real intricate or I don't want it to move, I just go ahead and baste it. And what I like about the basting thread, and this is what it's called, it's basting thread. I think it's a Japanese name. I'm gonna have to, these are things that I just take for granted. It's like shibui or something, basting thread, and I found it at Amazon. And yeah, as I said, I like that I have it in a bright blue so that I can see it. And one thing that I noticed when I was at the Merchant Mills sewing retreat, some of the girls, they use tailor tacks. They learn, to mark some of their markings on their pattern with tailor tacks, and they just had them use regular thread. In the back of my mind, I'm like, oh, I should have brought my basting thread, because one of the issues they had then when it was time to remove it, they were kind of complaining that it was really hard to get the regular thin thread, the Gutermann's or the Metler or whatever thread we use when we sew. It was really hard to get that out, and it shows because they actually used it as a tailor tack to mark where the pocket goes or where you're going to line something up. And that's the one thing I like about my basting thread is you can sew right over it. And when there are some times where I have to get tweezers and pull a little hard, but for the most part, you just sort of break the thread and pull it out and it comes out so easily. So yeah, use this almost every single time I sew something. Then another thing that I use that, and you guys probably know about this, but I didn't until I saw it. I think I saw it on Guthrie and Ghani a couple years ago, and that was my hot hem ruler. Yeah, you know how when you have to like turn something or hem something up a certain amount and then you need to press it. And so how do you measure it? And then you press it and ow, your fingers are real close and the iron or the steam gets on it and it's real hot. So what this does, it just has markings on it. I don't know if you can see with the light, but 1/4 inch, 1/2 inch, 3/4 inch, 1 inch. And so when I'm having to hem something or when I'm having to fold something over, I can just go, and it's made out of felt. So I don't know if you can see it. And it's made by Clover. Yeah, you can't see that. Clover, I guess they make a lot of sewing notions. But anyhow, I just go ahead and fold it over and I'm able to just take my iron and press, and it just comes in so handy. And these are things that I really wish that I would have known about. It took me years, and actually a lot of it was watching YouTube channels is where I learned this. And as a beginning sewist, I never in a million years would have even known about basting thread had I not watched Claire. I never would have thought about an awl or that I would need an awl. And again, this little thing is such a lifesaver when it comes to having to sew over humps to get the presser foot to just go straight through. So then I had my hot hem ruler. And then the last thing I thought that I would share that I find really, really you guys got to excuse me. I'm so tired. I could not get to sleep last night. I remember looking at the clock and it was 2:30, and my alarm was set for 5:30, and I thought, yeah, that's not going to happen. So I turned it off and I slept in a bit. So anyhow, it's kind of late for me. But the last thing that I use almost all the time that is really helpful when I'm sewing is my tracing paper, because remember every that little this or that was coming off, do you trace or do you just cut out the pattern? Well, I trace almost every pattern that I have. One, because I have to make a lot of not a lot of alterations, but if I want to alter the pattern, I like tracing it. And I'm actually glad I did that because I'm going to start sewing for my daughter, and she's a completely different size from me. So now I have these patterns that I bought that all I need to do is just trace it off, and I can trace off her size, and I don't need to buy another pattern. So anyhow, I love this tracing paper, and I came across it accidentally, like all the other tools that I have that I was showing you. They all were just accidents that sort of happened. So this is actually Bien thing, and I get it on Amazon. Yeah, here's another one. Bien Fang. Oh, there's some glare coming on. And this is the size that it comes in. I think the width is a yard, 36 inches, and then it says sketching and tracing paper. Yeah, 50 yards by 36 inches. So this actually lasts me, and I do a lot of tracing, guys. I do a lot of tracing. I trace every pattern. I try and do that I sew. I try and do alterations. Sometimes I trace a pattern, and then a year later I want to make it again, and I realize, oh, those alterations that I did were wrong or something, and so I'll scrunch it up and throw it away. I mean, I use a lot of this, and this probably lasts me a good 7, 8 months for one roll. So, yeah, as I said, another thing that I just came across accidentally. And what's nice is that, I don't know, you can see through it. I like it better than the medical paper with the numbers on it. I think it's really good. And I don't know, I just like it. So those are the things that I keep in my sewing room that are kind of different, but I find myself using almost every single time I sew. And I'm not seeing a lot of chat, so I don't know if there's anything that you guys have in your sewing room that you guys use a lot to help you in some various ways. But yeah, what I find interesting are these are all sewing tools or sewing notions that are out there, but to me is kind of new. I mean, I don't want to say I was new to sewing because I had sewn when I was, a child, and my mom taught me. And then did a little bit of sewing in high school. When my daughters were born, I did a little bit of sewing. And then I probably went a good 20 years without sewing. And I just got back into it in like 2016 to 18. So I was kind of a new sewist in that a lot had changed in those 20 years. For one, I didn't realize, like, maybe there were computerized sewing machines back then, but I was sewing off of this old brother. I think I went and bought a brand new brother when my daughter was 6, and she's 36 now. So I bought that like 30 years ago. And then I realized, as I was getting back into sewing, that it was actually kind of, I don't want to say antiquated. I probably could have gone a long time using that machine, because when I look at the computerized one, it's not that they're any better as far as the stitching, it's just that they're more convenient. So, when I have to go back to, let's say, an old school machine where I have to lower the presser foot, or where I have to actually cut my threads instead of just push a button that automatically cuts it, that's where I notice the differences. And I kind of got off track, but oh, yeah. So I kind of felt like I was kind of a new sewist back in 2016, 2018, when I was coming back into sewing, because so much had changed that a lot of the, I guess, a lot of the, what's the word, equipment was definitely upgraded and new. So for instance, pattern blocks, those were something that's new. In fact, I don't even think anything like that existed when my mom was teaching me to sew. This was probably back in the 70s. So so that's why I thought I would share some of these things, because, again, as a new sewist, I never in a million years would have known what basting thread was. I would never would have known what this little plastic thing was. In fact, I don't even know what it's called. As I said, I saw it on some YouTube channel where they do a lot of industrial sewing, and they did a lot of tips and tricks, which I really should go back and find it. I know it was called like Atelier something, and they would do a lot of tips and tricks where they would put little, and theirs weren't even fancy gadgets. Sometimes they would just be like a block of paper that they put tape over, or some other type of just thing that they happen to have on hand, and they would show you how you would go around doing sort of a kind of a difficult or an intricate, that's the word, an intricate sewing seam. And they would show you little tricks and tips on how to do that. And I really like that. So I need to find that and find out more about what was going on or what they're using and maybe share it. So I don't know. I've been chatting here for 15 minutes almost. Don't see any chat there, but I just thought I would, come on every Monday and talk about a couple of things that are on my mind that are sewing related to see if anyone else shares my same point of view, or if they have a different point of view and it's something worth discussing. So, as I said earlier, I am really tired. I'd love to chat with you guys, but I'm not seeing anything here. I hope maybe you found some of the little gadgets that I use kind of interesting. If you don't have them, I would definitely suggest if you can kind of get them, a lot of them, most of these are really inexpensive. I mean, all under $5. I think my hot hem ruler was under $5. This came with my sewing machine, but it's just a piece of plastic. The My thread, my basting thread. Oh my goodness. I think I bought this roll and I've used so much. I mean, it's like literally maybe one fourth the size that I bought it. And I think I paid on Amazon maybe $6.99 for it. And it's lasted me almost 9, 10 years. And then the tracing paper. But yeah, just thought I would share that, and hopefully I can come up with something really interesting for next Monday. And you guys might want to give me some ideas of what you might be interested in hearing about, and what I can research, and then we can get more of a chat going. So, for those of you who are here, I really appreciate it. Um, I really appreciate your support, and I will see you guys next time. Bye.